How do you transition from a job to a new job, or take your first job? Hey everybody, it's John at Contract Diagnostics, and we get lots of questions on what's the timeline look like? Who's the right person to talk with? How long does this whole thing take? When should I start looking for a job? And I think all those are individual questions, but we'll spend some time today going through what that process looks like from I need a job, where I'm looking at taking a new job, to I have a contract and I'm transitioning and I'm starting work. So first thing, whether you're an attending or whether you're a new grad, figure out what you're looking for. Define what you're looking for in an opportunity. Private practice, hospital employed, certain characteristics of a market. But before you even go down that road and start calling people, it's important to baseline your current situation. Do you have a non-compete? Most residents and fellows don't. We have seen it. It's very rare, but do you have a non-compete that could impact it? Do you have to buy your tail insurance? And if so, how much will that cost you? Are you ready for that purchase? That can impact the transition. Of course, can you quit your job if there's a termination notice that's no cause in there, or mutual if your employer will let you out? And if you do have a no-cause termination, which we see in 97% of contracts, is it 60 days, 120 days, 90 days, or something shorter or longer? Understand if and when you give that notice, what happens? Can you take vacation time? Can you take CME dollars and put them to work for you? Understand if and when your last day is at your job, will you lose a bonus that you have rightfully earned, whether it's RVUs or collections? If you're collections, do you get paid after the job ends? Those are all very important things that you'll need to know when you transition out of a position. How about 401ks? And there's all types of benefit questions that we could roll into as well. What transfers, what doesn't? What's vested and what is not? So it's important to understand your current baseline situation before you even jump into looking or finding out what the options are. If you've got a non-compete and $100,000 tail insurance and you can't get out of either one of them, maybe it doesn't pay to look for a job right now. It makes sense to process things later on. But once you've been through and you've kind of set your baseline, figure out what the metrics are that you're looking for in a position, in a schedule, in a community. Talk with your spouse if you have one on what they think would be right. Look at schools for the kids if that's important. Set a lot of parameters and then go about finding those unique areas that have opportunities for you. If there's no opportunity, I recommend proactively reaching out to the employer. See, maybe they have a retirement in 2 years or 3 years. That'd be good to bring somebody on early. You never know. You don't have to go through the recruiters, but if you do, recruiters can be a great asset on your side in finding the right position. Once you do that, let's set some interviews up. I like multiple interviews. I like getting multiple offers. I think it drives negotiating capital for you all and allows you to negotiate better with the employer. Once we have an interview, next step might be a site visit. So let's interview them as they interview you. I want to make sure it's a really good spot for your skill set and you're looking long-term if that's truly what you're looking for. Figure out what kind of equipment they have, staffing challenges, what the community offers and what it doesn't. After a site visit, which by the way, we recommend not discussing pay. We think you can discuss the schedule and discuss the structure and expectations, but I don't want you discussing pay. I want to get that LOI, or I want to get that contract with a baseline which we can then build from. We see letters of intents or MOUs in 22% of the positions that we review here. So if you get one, this is the time to negotiate the things that are on there. Let's talk about salary. Let's talk about the benefits if they're on there. If there's bonuses and signing dollars, let's talk about those things. If there's things like malpractice insurance and non-competes, let's talk about those too, because oftentimes signing the letter of intent tells the employer, maybe you weren't intending to tell them this, but tells the employer, I'm okay with the things that are on this letter of intent. Once you've signed the letter of intent, which again, we say negotiate it. If there are things on there that you want changed, reach out to us if you need help with that. We negotiate letters of intent all the time. Once the letter of intent signed, figure out how long it's going to take to get a contract. It might be 3 days, it might be 3 hours, it might be 3 weeks. Now, if you're juggling multiple offers, which I hope that we are, at that point, we need to start to balance when we're getting offers, when their deadlines are, and how long it's going to take to have everything looked at. Because if one position says, I need an answer from you on Friday, but another opportunity is going to be delivered to you the following Wednesday, we've got a timing problem. So let's manage the timing problems as you go through the process. Once you receive the actual contract, of course, have it reviewed by somebody. This is what we do nonstop for 13 years here at Contract Diagnostics. But find a firm, find an attorney attorney, find someone that you like and appreciate, who has a lot of experience and good compensation data, and has no conflicts of interest with your employer. Go through the contract with that person or that firm, find out who you're going to talk with at the account, how you're going to negotiate it, what things are important to you, what things are negotiable, what things can we get creative with. I think it should be very purposeful. I think just like when you go in to see a patient, you really don't know what you're going to encounter, so you ask a lot of questions, and then based on the answers to your questions, you'll formulate a treatment protocol. And we think this is the same thing. Let's go in seeking to understand. Let's go in asking a lot of questions, and then based on what they say, now we can formulate a rule and a set of asks. I don't want you going in there saying, I'm going to ask for this much compensation, if we don't even understand their philosophy around compensation. So let's ask questions, and then let's negotiate from their answers. Who do you deal with? I think it could be anybody from the recruiter to the legal department to the HR people to the director of the department. I think it's important to find a decision maker, yet somebody who knows a lot about all those things. The lawyer might be the person to change the legal language in the agreement, but they're not going to know how they set compensation or how the benefits look, or how the call schedule is built if a surgeon takes off. So let's find out who the right person is that knows all of those things. If you have a request that they can't answer, let's escalate that to the proper individual with the proper authority. That might take a while. Sometimes it takes 2 days to hear back, or even less. Sometimes it takes 3 weeks to hear back. Oftentimes we'll hear from a facility, look, if the physician wants more compensation, we have to go ask the compensation committee. So if I say, okay, great, let us know what they say, and hang up the phone, I don't know how long it is. So I always clarify, when is the next compensation committee meeting? And maybe the physician's looking for $5,000 extra, and it's a 50-50 chance that it goes through. Maybe the compensation committee is 3 weeks away. Is it worth waiting for that extra compensation? That's a decision, of course, for you all as the physician, as the employee, to make. So once we get answers back, let's make sure that the contract is reflective of those changes. And then, of course, we proceed. Now, we sign the contract, and then we can celebrate, but not yet. We have all these credentialing packets and onboarding and state licensing and everything else to do. So make sure you understand the timelines that all of those take, who's paying for all of it, and of course, how that blends into your start date. Once you're there, of course, you're off and running, and hopefully everything goes smooth. But it is important to know if there's delays in the credentialing process, if something gets lost, if somebody's on holiday and you don't get processed, what happens? Do you start on September 15th as you thought and start making your physician wage, or would you be delayed for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks? What are you going to do with your time? Can you afford to live for 3 weeks without making an income? Do you need to go take a locums position? So figure out the timing and what happens if things don't go according to plan. And then, of course, with all of this overlaying, your employer could have a contract with the hospital. So if you're working for one of the major organizations that contracts with physicians and contracts with the hospitals, think of large hospitalist groups or emergency medicine groups, there's pulmonary and critical care groups, there's laborist groups, there's lots of facilities where your employer isn't the hospital. Your employer is the contracting entity that has the contract with the hospital. If you work for one of these organizations, make sure you understand when the contract ends. Make sure you understand what happens if it goes away. If they terminate their contract, if the hospital awards it to somebody else and you haven't started, or you're 2 months into the job, what happens? It's important to understand those transitions as well. If you transition to the new employer, if you won't be at all, if you need to reapply for the position and you might have just quit a job, relocated across the country, and now you got to reapply for the same job and you might not get it. Or maybe they want to offer you something, but they're going to offer you less pay. It's important to understand those nuances as well. And of course, the contract review that you'll do will provide you all the details that you know on if and when things don't work out at the position. How do I transition out? How do I get to the next phase of my career? And of course, what's the damage? Is there a cost? Is there restrictions and everything else? Again, this whole process can take 3 to 4 days. It can take 3 to 4 months. It just depends. If a physician's renegotiating with their employer, this could even take longer. Oftentimes, the employer want to push things back. They want to delay. That's why having somebody who's working on your behalf to push it along is a good thing, like Contract Diagnostics or another firm. So we've covered today a lot of ground. I know this was a longer session than we usually have with each other, but I hope that you were able to take something from the process, something from the system, figure out what kind of timelines you all need to transition from one role to the next, or to figure out how do I find my first job and what does that process look like. People start looking for jobs at any point in their career. We've seen physicians sign 2.5 years out of training before they even finish their school. Some physicians are signing a job, they have a job now, they're signing for a job in 1.5 years because of things that they're finishing training-wise, or maybe they've got a tail insurance that they're trying to come up with. So there's no right or wrong timing. But if we can answer any questions around the timing, around what's best for your situation, we love to hear your story. Feel free to check us out at contractdiagnostics.com. Set up a free inquiry call, book a review if you'd like. Everything's super simple on the website. I'm John, and know that we are always here to help.